Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
And talk to Gina Miller. If you remember, Gina Miller was the businesswoman who launched the very successful court case to force the Prime Minister to make sure that Parliament had a vote before she triggered Article 50. Now, I noticed that you are starting a new court case against the government. Tell me a bit about that. What's that about?
It's not a new case in that last summer I issued a letter to the government asking about the DUP payment, or the Northern Ireland payment to secure the DUP.
So just to remind people, the government has promised a billion, some would say $1.5 billion of public spending.
Of public money, yes.
For Northern Ireland, and it was a condition of the 10 DUP MPs propping up the government as part of this alliance that they've got.
Absolutely. We sent a letter to the government asking them if they were going to put this through Parliament, if there was going to be a vote in Parliament, because there needs to be. A letter came back for them saying, yes, you're absolutely right, there needs to be a vote in Parliament. And yet we have found out that there have been 2 payments that have gone through. And the government are now saying that they'll ask Parliament retrospectively. Actually,
so it's not going through the it's not gone through the finance bill.
It's not gone through the proper channels. And constitutionally, they have no powers to do this. And so I'm challenging, saying it's not about the payment, it's the way you're doing this. And time again, there are examples of the government trying to bypass Parliament. I mean,
So you're arguing again, as you did with the Article 50 decision, that she's in breach of our unwritten constitution.
The executive is trying to change the power between itself and Parliament. And we see that with the withdrawal bill.
So just to be clear, you've launched a formal court case on this?
No, we have sent a second letter to the government asking... it's something called ultra vires, so they're acting beyond their powers, beyond the law. And we're expecting an answer this week. If it comes back and they say that they've done this and they can't give the assurances we're asking for in the letter that there'll be a full vote in Parliament for the rest of the money, then we will ask for a judicial review.
You will ask for a judicial review, but you haven't launched the judicial review.
No, we've sent a letter, a second, what's called a PAP letter. We've sent a second letter. The government have till later this week to respond. Depending on their response, we will then go for judicial review. Now,
can I just ask, it's a sort of small sort of campaigning thing. I originally saw you as part of Best for Britain. Are you still part of Best for Britain?
No. I stepped down the day after because my involvement for Best for Britain was to try and encourage people to dent that landslide that looked as though it was going to happen and encourage more young people and more women to turn out and vote, and to encourage tactical voting. Once the election had happened, I stepped down. That was not my intention to be part of that movement ongoing. OK. Now,
the other thing which has been big news this week has been the hideous events at the Dorchester with the President's Club dinner revealed, the full horror revealed by the FT. You've worked in and around the city for years.
Over 20 years, yes.
The picture of routine sexual harassment, has that been a feature of your daily experience?
It's not just mine, but many women in the city. In fact, there was a survey towards the end of last year which found that 2/3 of women say that they're still experiencing sexual harassment in the workplace in the city. And what worries me about this dinner is that there's a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon here. This is not about charities. This is not about fundraising. And actually, I don't think the charities should have handed back the money. But this is about setting the tone, the cultural tone within organisations. And, you know, one has to question if by day these men are talking about equal pay, about changing environments, about women's on boards, but at night are behaving in a way that sort of seems to have lost their moral compass. And that's what worries me, is that the cultural tone is not changing in organisations because of men, such as some of the men who attended this dinner.
Now, there's a lot of talk in the wake of the dinner from some of the bosses that I talked to that this was a, quotes they've said to me, a wake-up call for us, you know, we are going to change.
They needed a wake-up call. I mean, it's been years.
But do you believe them? Because, you know, I mean, I've been in and around the city for donkey's years, and, you know, there is this hideous culture of sexism. And
it is, and actually what's worse now than, say, when I was in the city, when I started, is that actually it's now more nuanced.
What do you mean by that?
It's much more difficult to call out now because you know, they are aware that you can't be as blatantly sexist as they were in the past. So things will be done in a much softer way, where women are saying to me quite often, and I feel it too, are saying, was that something sexist? Was it? I'm not quite sure. But I say that if you feel uncomfortable, then something isn't right. You shouldn't be in a work environment where you feel uncomfortable being there.
Now, what many people say to me is all these organisations have whistleblowing arrangements, but many of the women just feel that their careers will be damaged if they go through them, and they have no confidence in those arrangements.
That's a problem, because unless they're anonymous, it's very difficult, because the backlash would be that they'd lose their career opportunities or even their jobs. So a lot of young women won't speak up, but I think you have to speak up now. And we are in a changed environment. One of the things that really disturbed me about this dinner is that in the, you know, in the background of Weinstein and all the other scandals, political scandals, they had a dinner at the Dorchester. You know, they still went ahead. It just seems so arrogant to have done this.
Is ultimately, I mean, it's sort of an obvious point, but ultimately, have we simply got to make sure that women are running these companies, because nothing will change unless there is genuine equality at the top?
I call it womenizing the world, and I think that in politics and in business, I think we have to have... It's not about women being better than men. I think it's about equality and having different opportunities, because ultimately, this is a power play. And whoever it is that's exploiting that position of power, there has to be a change there.
Gina, lovely to see you again.